Senator, on motion 11.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I'm pleased to be able to rise and speak to this motion, although I'm going to come at it a bit differently than everyone else has. Myself and my caucus have a very, very strongly held belief that MLAs should not be setting their own pay and perks. And we raised this in a number of different venues and as a reaction to different proposals about pay schedules and things that were being raised in the Member Services Committee a number of times. It was our standard response. We really, really believe this. And we were very happy to have one of our members, who's now one of the members of the Government Caucus, bring forward a motion. And we don't get many motions in the opposition, because as some of you know and some of you don't, all private members are treated the same. Well, this would be my argument with the Government House Leader. But all of our names are put into a pool, and the order for the private members' motions and bills are drawn from that. So official opposition and third-party and fourth-party opposition don't get a lot of chance at this. So for us to take one of our motions and designate it to this tells you how important it was. It was brought forward by the member for Lethbridge East, and in fact, it was unanimously passed. And it was pretty clear that there was to be an independent commission to set the MLA pay and benefits. Now, what did we actually get from this? What we got from it is an independent commission, and I think we could, well, okay, fine. I will quibble with the way it was set up, in that it went to the Speaker of the Day, who set it up with some criteria that raised eyebrows and set this all on a certain course. But we did end up with an independent commission, a one-person commission of Justice Major, who then presented a report. And did we accept that report? Well, no. What we're hearing here is the ensuing debate, which will inevitably end with MLAs setting their own pay and benefits, which was not where we started. What we've already got is cherry-picking in this very motion that I am debating. We have the government saying, we accept the report except certain things, and they can spell them out. And at this point, I don't care what the certain things are anymore, because we have lost the ability to stand up and say, we accept this report. We charged them to do a certain thing. We said we wanted someone else to do this. And what are we going to do? We're spending time in this House debating it again by MLAs talking about setting their own pay and perks. The government motion starts it out by saying, we're not going to accept this, that, and the next thing. They're cherry-picking off of the report. We like this, but we don't like that. Okie dokie then. And what's going to happen after this? Oh, wait, it's going to get sent to the Member Services Committee. Now, that is an all-party legislative committee. Much respected, much feared. And it is, I'm sorry, who's sitting on this again? Oh, right. A majority of the people are sitting there are government members, and there are a small number of participants on that committee who represent the official opposition, the third party, and the fourth party. And that group is going to decide how to implement this, and is additionally charged with working out some of the details on things like the pension plan. So, correct me if I'm wrong, but are we now not sending this to a group of MLAs to decide their own pay and benefits? Yes, we are. So right there, we've contravened what we said we would do. We all said in this House, and it was unanimous on the day, that we would support an independent commission setting this. And we've already managed to work that around way back to Member Services Committee, which the previous Speaker, the Leader of the Official Opposition, has so, in such an eloquent way, outlined where all of these problems started. Wait for it. I'm waiting. My ear is out. Yes, indeed, that would be the Member Services Committee who decided to set all of these things. And now we are going to send this back to the Member Services Committee to decide the pay and perks. So what is wrong with this picture? What's wrong with this is we've already violated where we started. Now, I've got all kinds of, quibbles and suggestions and things that I'd like in there or not like in there. I was one of the few MLAs that actually signed up and went to the commission and put it on record. And in fact, my Hansard appears at the back of the report. And I was very concerned that the commission be aware of a couple of things. One is that not all private members are equal. Government private members are more equal than other private members. And I wanted that known and understood, because that really matters when you're talking about pay and benefits. Because, of course, if you're taking the best years of earning, anyone that's sitting on the government side was earning extra money by being appointed to government-only committees or to chair a government-only arm's length group, the Seniors Advisory Council. That was always a government MLA, and it came with a salary of $40,000 a year. So generally speaking, and the Premier's Council on the Status of Person with Disabilities, all of those were paid. They were all paid additional money. And at one point, they were so desperate to find a job for their one last backbencher MLA that didn't have an extra job, they booted the person who was currently the chairperson for the Premier's Council on the Status of Disabilities so they could put their own backbencher in there. I'm going back quite a few years on that one. But people will be able to figure out who I'm talking about. There was lots of things that each of us could contribute to this discussion. I wanted it known that not all private members are equal. I wanted it known that for people that were coming from the not-for-profit sector or the public service sector, which is half of our working population here in Alberta, we love to talk about the entrepreneurs, and I love you entrepreneurs because you're making us all money, and it's a talent I don't have, and I'm incredibly in awe of all of you. But God bless you, you are half of the workforce. The other half of the workforce are people that work in the public service and the NGO sector. And you've got to understand that most of them are not paid well enough to be able to sock away money on a regular basis for a pension to begin with. And the best working years in the not-for-profit sector are 35 to 55, which is exactly our age. So anyone coming here from the NGO sector is going to end up with a significant payment deficit in order to perform the service of representing the public here. And I wanted people to understand that and to know it and to work it into what they were doing. So, I wanted to make that point. I wanted to make the point that, you shouldn't be basing things on a situation where one group is significantly disadvantaged over the others, which is what I've just been talking about. That the transition allowance was incredibly important to people that were going back into the NGO sector, and I used myself as an example there. I also wanted to quibble with the criteria comparisons, and if you look on page 11 of the report, the benchmarks that were set there were against Canadian federal, provincial, and territorial parliaments. Okay, fair enough. But Alberta's Queen Bench and provincial court judges? Yikes. Or senior public service in Alberta, including provincial, university, municipal education, and healthcare sector? Well, gee whiz, the guy that heads up AIMCO for the province makes $2 million. I'm just not in that league, and I don't think I should be compared to him. I'd like to have known how I stood up or how I measured against a plumber or an iron worker, a unionized iron worker, or a high school principal, or a wage earner, even a high wage earner that was in an unstable, there was no job security, because we have 4-year job security, right? So I wanted to know how we compared there, and was it fair? Did we fit into that strata of people? Because I've got a lot of plumbers and high school teachers and wage earners in my life and in my constituency. I'm just not moving in that rarefied strata of, government mandarins and judges. That's a different level for me. So I would have preferred a different criteria. But you see, we could all cherry pick about how we want this to go, right? So, during the election, a lot of people weighed in on this one, and credit goes to the Wild Rose for whipping this one into a true frenzy. Froth on top and sprinkles and a cherry. Really what people said is, we want you to be reasonably paid, we don't want you to be paid crap, we don't want you to be paid the best in the world. Fair enough. That's why I was interested in where I came with the plumber and the teacher and all of those people. They wanted that pay to recognize the responsibility, to recognize the leadership, to recognize the hours. We do work a lot of weekends and a lot of evenings, and I will tell you, you all will get to a point where you will think, God, if I blew off this event, I'd be blowing off $80. Would I pay $80 to sit at home in my pajamas and eat a grilled cheese sandwich? And you will all come to that point where you make that decision, because we do work a lot at night and on the weekends, and that's part of what we are paid to do, or the pay should recognize. But also for those that travel from away from home, that's a lot of time away from your family. It's a lot of time away from your family. So all of those things need to come into that mix about how we're paid. But essentially, we should be paid reasonably. It should be transparent so anybody can figure out how we're paid. And that means that taxable allowance, although in fact it's a deal from the federal government, and now we're going to make taxpayers pony up the money for us to give to the feds. Yikes, why are we doing that? But it will make it more transparent, and I'm willing to do that in order to make it more transparent. So, you know, I could go on and on about the things I like and the things I don't like, but the point of this whole thing and where I started is it's about payment, and it's also about what we do for that payment. My last point I want to make is we have absolutely no balance, no measurement that the public can use against us. There is no code of conduct for MLAs, except you must be here in question period, and if you're not, they'll start to dock your pay. Aside from that, there is nothing in anything we do that says you have to open a constituency office, that you have to be there, that you have to return phone calls to constituents, that you have to meet with constituents. And all of those things I have seen not done in my time in this assembly. We had MLAs whose offices were locked, and you had to phone and prove who you were in order to get an appointment. We've had all kinds of variations on that. So what we do need is a code of conduct. If you are going to have a salary where we are paid reasonably, where there's a pension or a transition allowance, there must be something on the other side that balances this, that says, here's the code of conduct. You must have a constituency office. You must have it open at some kind of published hours. You know, you have an obligation to meet with and speak to your constituents. I mean, beyond that, we can get into another level of detail. But do you see what I'm saying? I'd be right PO'd if I was an Albertan too. Yeah, we're going to pay these guys to go to Edmonton and do what? Talk? Yeah, let me in on this one. But how do they gauge our performance? They can't. All they can do is look at how many times we turn up in the media. Is that a good way of understanding what a good job we've done or what a bad job we've done? Careful how you answer that one. We need to be able to stand up and say to people, yes, this is a reasonable way to pay us, and this is the independent commission that we had tell us, but we also need to be able to stand up and say, fair enough, this is how you measure me. And we need to have that code of conduct and to put it out there so we can be measured against it, because right now we don't, and there is no way for any of our constituents and Albertans to say my MLA is meeting the minimum requirements, because there aren't any. And no wonder they do not like paying us the money that we're getting paid. Now, back to the beginning. Code of conduct, and this is the report that we commissioned. Like it or not, suck it up, sunshine. This is what we got back. Now, you can argue that they got the wrong criteria and all the other arguments I've made here. The truth of it is, we said we would abide by the independent commission that gave us the answer to this, and I want to see if you're going to do that. Because right now, if you agree to motion 11, you are agreeing to the government starting to cherry pick which of these things they will accept and not accept out of the report. And the deal was, we don't set our salaries. Can you tell me anybody if the chairman of Syncrude or the chairwoman of Suncor or Nexon or anybody gets to set their own salary? Anybody? We've got somebody from the oil and gas sector here. Are they setting their own salary? They're negotiating it. You're darn right. And we should be. And so, do they get to just say, I'm going to get paid this much money and these many perks? No, they don't. They have to negotiate to get it. Well, our negotiation was we hand it over to this independent commission, and they're going to tell us what you're going to get back. And that's the deal, my friends, and you better stand back. And you better stand on that one, because otherwise we've broken our own faith. That's all I want to say. So I won't be supporting Government Motion 11, Mr. Speaker, because it breaks that faith of an independent commission we would abide by and brings us right back into that circle of MLAs deciding their own pay and perks. Thank you.
Honourable members, 29.2a is available. Should anyone have questions to the previous speaker or comments with respect to anything that was said by that speaker? No one under 29.2a? Thank you. Then I'll recognize the honourable member from Calgary Mountain View, followed by the member from Airdrie, followed by the member from Edmonton Strathcona.
On 29.2a, Mr. Speaker.
Oh, you're up on 29.2a?
Sorry, yeah.
Sorry.
A little slow, but...
Proceed with 29.2a then. Okay.
I'd be interested to hear from the honourable member if there are other jurisdictions that are actually implementing codes of conduct or job descriptions that can be holding us more accountable for the pay and perks that we receive. Or would we be setting...
Honourable member?
Thank you. I'm not aware of any other jurisdictions that do that, but to be perfectly honest, I didn't research it. And to be even more blunt about it, I don't care. I think it's what we do, and it's how I hold myself accountable to the people that I represent. So I really don't care what they're doing in PEI or in the Yukon. I think what's important is how we set ourselves up, and that's very important to me. I've done a lot in my years to be as transparent as possible to my constituents, to be accountable, to let them look at the work I'm doing and criticize me for what I'm doing. So I publish an annual report every year. Actually, when I started 15 years ago, I did one paper annual report that went in the mail. Because of the wonderful technology we have, I now do an annual report that goes in the mail and on the website, which you also have to have now, so I have a website. And then I do an e-zine on important issues that come out of the House about once a month. And I also work on Twitter and on Facebook. Yikes. And I publish how I spend the constituency budget. Every year in that annual report, it goes out every time, and it says this is how much was on salaries and who got paid out of it. And you've got to be careful there, because you don't want people to be able to sort of go, well, your constituency assistant makes this much money then, right? You know, you've got to give an overall statement there. How much is spent on rent, and how much we spend on promotional items, and how much we spent on mailing in the annual report. All of that is broken out. I've published it for 15 years, 16 years now, and I invite people to come in and look at my books if they want to. They're more than welcome to do that. So it is about accountability to me, and I think it's important that we have that code of conduct as the other side of our payment. Because I don't know of anyone else that goes into a job without some kind of job description and some kind of code that they're measured against as to whether they've accomplished that. So I don't care what anybody else does. I think it's important, and it's important to me that we do the best we can to do that.
Thank you. The Honourable Minister of Municipal Affairs.
Thank you. I was listening to the Honourable Member speak, and I completely agree with the importance of a code of conduct, but I have questions about whether or not the code of conduct should be set by this Assembly. Because quite frankly, Mr. Speaker, the requirement to have an office, does that, in my constituency, which is 4.5 hours from one end of the constituency to the other, does the code of conduct require I have two? My constituents expect to see me at every public event, graduations, parades, rodeos, and fairs, while her constituents might not, or at least not in 44 different communities. I'm wondering why, when we're trying to improve democracy, the code of conduct would be written by members of this Assembly instead of the people in our constituency who hold our code of conduct up to us every single day, and especially every 4 years during an election.
The Honourable Member.
I don't know that it does necessarily have to be written by us. I just think there needs to be a baseline code of conduct. Because you're right. Your people expect you to be at absolutely everything. My people expect that even more. Because your people know that you're going to be on the highway for 2.5 hours or 3 hours. They know I'm not. They know that I can put on my running shoes and walk to their event in 20 minutes. So I had bloody well better be at every single event they want me at. And I do. So we have different requirements, and we all work our constituencies differently. But the bottom line is, what is the minimum standard of what we should be doing? That's what I was aiming for here, not how many offices you have, but that there is a constituency office of some kind in some place that you do have public hours for. In other words, the public can access you. And maybe that's a virtual thing. Maybe you do that by having that you're Skyping at a certain time at a certain point. I don't know. But the point is that yes, we are measured every 4 years by our constituents, but I think there has to be another way, because as I say, in my time here, I have seen abuse. I have seen MLAs that, you know, don't participate in question period at all, or they won't let people come into their constituency office, or they refuse to do any casework for their constituents. And I think there has to be a minimum that we can all work from, and it shouldn't be hard to meet that.
Thank you, honourable members. Just before we go on with the speaking rotation, a request has been made with respect to what the speaking order or speaking sequence should be. And I want to say that on this particular point, we try to observe tradition in the House where if there are a number of speakers that we don't normally recognize two people in a row who are from the same party. Similarly, we usually don't go back to a party that has already spoken when there is a third one who has not spoken. But these are customs and traditions that do not find themselves in our standing orders per se. In my time in the chair, I can tell you that we've tried to develop a system to adhere to, and it seldom, if ever, really works, which is why there's nothing in the standing orders, I suspect. Because there will be occasions that occur where people have to leave early, or a sudden occurrence has happened and they have to leave early, or they have a flight to catch, or whatever it might be. And we have no way of knowing how long a particular person might wish to speak. At the moment, we're speaking either 90 minutes in the case of the official opposition House leader, or opposition leader, I should say, and others are speaking 20s or 15s plus 5s or whatever it might happen to be when we bring in 29-2A. However, on this particular occasion, I've already indicated a speaking order, and so I want to revisit that, and in the spirit of fairness, I would ask your agreement to alter the speaking order to allow the member from Airdrie to go next, then the member from Empton Strathcona, and then the member from Calgary Mountain View. Otherwise, we tend to chair the Assembly and the speaking order based on notes that come into us or previously provided speaking order lists, just so that we're clear. So if no one objects to that, then I would recognize the honourable member from Airdrie to go next. The I'll invite the honourable member from Edmonton Centre to make a comment, although I hesitate getting into a debate on this.
Yes, that's, thank you very much for the caution, Mr. Speaker. Under 13.2, could the Speaker explain, my understanding was that we tend to go back, we do go back and forth between the government members and the opposition members, but I take it that today, and that's why I'm asking for the explanation, there are no government members who are indicating they wish to participate, and therefore you have only opposition members to deal with. Is that what's at issue here?
All I can tell you, honourable members, that I have 3 people who've indicated a wish to speak, and so I've just clarified that. I thank you for the observation. Should more names come forward onto the speaking list, we'll be happy to add them accordingly. Honourable member from Airdrie.
Thank you,